Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more English story. The sound of rain drumming against the large glass windows of the airport was both soothing and annoying. Maya tapped her foot impatiently as the announcement echoed through the terminal. Flight 782 to New York has been canceled due to severe weather conditions. Great. Just great. Maya muttered under her breath. She adjusted her scarf and glanced around, spotting dozens of equally frustrated passengers. Ethan, sitting a few rows away, sighed loudly as he closed his laptop. So much for making it to the client meeting tomorrow, he grumbled. He stood, stretched, and looked at the long line forming at the customer service desk. The two strangers were about to cross paths in the most unexpected way. A rocky start. Maya joined the line with her carry-on bag, tugging her phone out of her pocket to check for alternative flights. Ethan, just a few people behind her, noticed her scrolling furiously and shook his head. Good luck finding anything tonight, he muttered just loud enough for her to hear. Maya turned around, her brow furrowed. Excuse me? Ethan raised his hands in mock surrender. I'm just saying it's a storm. No one's flying out tonight. Well, thank you for your completely unsolicited weather report, Mr. Know-it-all, she replied, her tone sharp. Ethan smirked. Just trying to help. Maya rolled her eyes and turned back, determined to ignore the tall, cocky stranger behind her. A shared dilemma. After waiting for nearly an hour, Maya finally reached the desk, only to be told the next available flight was scheduled for the following afternoon. Are you serious? She asked the agent, exasperated. There's nothing sooner? I'm sorry. Mom, that's the earliest we can do. The agent replied apologetically. Defeated, Maya stepped aside, dragging her bag to a nearby seat. Moments latte. Ethan approached the desk. She couldn't help but overhear the same conversation replaying. Figures, he muttered as he walked away, dropping into the seat across from hers. Maya gave him a sideways glance. Looks like your weather report was spot on. Ethan chuckled. Told you. And now we're both stuck here. Forced companionship. Hours passed, and the terminal began to empty as most passengers either left for hotels or resigned themselves to waiting in silence. Maya and Ethan, however, seemed to keep running into each other at the coffee shop, by the charging station, and even near the vending machines. Okay, this is getting weird, Maya said, holding her cup of tea. Ethan shrugged. Maybe it's fate? Or bad luck? She shot back, though a small smile tugged at her lips. They ended up sitting near each other, partly because all the other comfortable seats were taken and partly because, despite their initial annoyance, the company was better than solitude. Opening up, what's your story? Ethan asked, breaking the silence. Maya raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I mean, why are you flying to New York? Business? Family? Running away from something? She laughed softly. Definitely not running away. I'm actually heading there for a photography exhibit. One of my photos is being featured. Wow, Ethan said, sounding genuinely impressed. That's amazing. What kind of photography do you do? Mostly landscapes and urban scenes, Maya said, her tone softening. Photography's always been my escape. You know, a way to see the world differently. Ethan nodded. I get that. For me, it's writing. I'm a copywriter, but my dream is to write a novel someday. Really? What kind of novel? Something meaningful, he said, leaning back. Maybe a story about finding hope when everything feels lost. Maya smiled. That sounds beautiful. For the first time that evening, their conversation felt easy and natural. Shared pain as the hours ticked by. Their topics grew deeper. Ethan shared how he'd lost his dad at a young age and how it had shaped his determination to succeed. Maya talked about her struggles with self-doubt, especially in pursuing her passion for photography. It's hard sometimes, she admitted. I keep wondering if I'm good enough or if I'm just fooling myself. Ethan looked at her, his expression serious. For what it's worth, I think it takes a lot of courage to chase your dreams. Most people don't even try. His words touched her more than she expected. Thank you, she said quietly. Laughter amid chaos. At one point, the power briefly flickered, plunging the terminal into semi-darkness. Well, this just keeps getting better, Ethan said, pulling out his phone flashlight. Maya laughed. Honestly, it's almost funny at this point. They ended up sharing funny travel stories, like the time Ethan accidentally boarded the wrong train in Paris, or when Maya got stuck in an elevator with a panicked tourist. Their laughter echoed through the quiet terminal, drawing amused glances from the few remaining passengers. The magic of connection. As midnight approached, the conversation turned back to fate and destiny. Do you believe in destiny? Maya asked, sipping her now cold tea. Ethan thought for a moment. I'm not sure, but I do think some things happen for a reason, even if we don't understand them at the time. Maya nodded slowly. Yeah, like this canceled flight. Maybe. He smiled. Exactly. For a brief moment, the chaos of the night faded away, and they simply enjoyed each other's company. Parting ways. The next morning, flights began to resume. Maya and Ethan found themselves standing in separate lines, waiting to board different planes. So, I guess this is it, Ethan said, trying to sound casual, but failing to hide the hint of sadness in his voice. Yeah, Maya replied, her heart sinking a little. Thanks for making a terrible night less terrible. Same to you, he said with a smile. As they exchanged goodbyes, neither of them could shake the feeling that their paths had crossed for a reason. Maya watched him walk away, wondering if she'd ever see him again. Ethan glanced back one last time, hoping fate had more in store for them. Part 2. The city of New York buzzed with its usual energy. Cars honked impatiently. Pedestrians hurried past each other. And street vendors called out to passersby. Maya stood outside the gallery where her photograph was being exhibited. The air was cold, but her heart raced with anticipation. Her photo, a black and white capture of a lonely bench in Central Park under a blanket of snow, was something she'd poured her soul into. It symbolized solitude and hope at the same time, a reflection of her own journey. Yet, as proud as she was, something felt missing. Or rather, someone. Lingering thoughts. It had been 2 weeks since the airport night with Ethan. 2 weeks of wondering if she should have asked for his number. 2 weeks of replaying their conversations in her mind. Fate brought us together, she had told herself. But maybe fate wasn't ready for us to stay. She shook her head, trying to focus. This was her moment, her photo, her dream coming to life. Yet, the thought of Ethan lingered like an unfinished sentence in the back of her mind. A familiar face. Inside the gallery, Maya was surrounded by people admiring the artwork. Some nodded appreciatively at her photo, while others jotted down notes or took pictures on their phones. She smiled politely, answering questions from those who stopped to ask about her work. Just as she turned to grab a glass of water from the refreshment table, her heart nearly stopped. There he was, Ethan. He stood a few feet away, hands tucked into the pockets of his coat, his eyes fixed on her photograph. Maya blinked, unsure if she was imagining things. Is it really him? She whispered to herself, as if sensing her gaze. Ethan turned and locked eyes with her. For a moment, the noise of the gallery faded, and it was just the two of them. He walked toward her, a smile spreading across his face. Maya. Ethan. She breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. An unlikely reunion. I can't believe this, Maya said, still in shock. What are you doing here? Ethan chuckled. Well, I could say it's a coincidence. But considering our history, I'm starting to think destiny has a sense of humor. Maya laughed, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. Seriously? Though, how did you find this place? I saw a post about this exhibit online. He explained. When I saw your name, I thought, it can't be the same Maya from the airport. But here you are. And here you are, she replied, shaking her head in disbelief. They spent the next hour walking through the gallery, catching up on the last 2 weeks. Ethan talked about the client meeting he'd rushed to New York for, and Maya shared the highs and lows of preparing for the exhibit. Fate's humor. You know, Ethan said, stopping in front of another photo. I thought about you after that night at the airport. Maya felt her cheeks flush. Really? He nodded. I mean, how could I not? You made a canceled flight one of the most memorable nights of my life. She laughed softly. I thought about you too. A lot. Guess fate wasn't done with us after all, he said with a grin. Maya smiled, her heart feeling lighter than it had in days. The conversation deepens. After the exhibit, they decided to grab coffee at a small cafe down the street. The cozy atmosphere, with its warm lighting and soft jazz music, felt like the perfect setting for their reunion. So, Ethan began, stirring his coffee. What's next for you? More photography? Definitely, Maya said, her eyes lighting up. I have a few projects in mind, but honestly, I'm just trying to take it one step at a time. That's a good approach, Ethan said. I've been thinking about that too. Life can be overwhelming if you try to plan everything all at once. They talked for hours, diving into topics they hadn't covered during their airport encounter. Maya shared her dreams of traveling the world with her camera, and Ethan opened up about the novel he'd finally started writing. Can I tell you something? Maya said, her voice hesitant. Of course, Ethan replied. Meeting you that night, it reminded me that sometimes the best things in life happen when you least expect them. Ethan smiled, his eyes softening. I feel the same way. The fear of vulnerability. As their conversation grew more personal, Maya felt a pang of fear. Could she really trust this connection? Was it too good to be true? You know, she said cautiously, I've always believed in fate, but it scares me too. What if it brings people together only to pull them apart again? Ethan leaned forward, his gaze steady. Or what if it brings people together because they're meant to stay? His words hung in the air, filling the space between them with both hope and uncertainty. A night to remember. They spent the rest of the evening wandering through the city, sharing stories and laughter as they explored Times Square, strolled through Bryant Park, and even rode the subway just for the experience. By the time they parted ways that night, the bond between them felt unshakable. Yet, neither of them said the words lingering on the tips of their tongues. I'll call you, Ethan said, his voice soft. Maya nodded. I'd like that. As she watched him disappear into the crowd, a part of her wondered if this was just another chapter in their story, or the beginning of something much bigger. Part 3. The Days Apart. After that magical night in New York, Maya and Ethan stayed in touch. They texted, called, and even shared photos of their daily lives. Though miles apart, Maya in New York pursuing her photography, and Ethan back in Boston working on his novel, they felt closer than ever. But even the strongest connections face challenges. The distance and doubts. One rainy evening, Maya sat by her window, scrolling through her phone. Her last conversation with Ethan had been unusually short. His replies curt. Maybe he's busy, she told herself. But doubt crept in. Was their connection just a fleeting spark, destined to fade? Meanwhile, Ethan was wrestling with his own insecurities. His novel wasn't progressing as he'd hoped, and he felt overwhelmed by deadlines and self-doubt. Though he wanted to talk to Maya, he didn't want to burden her with his struggles. Days turned into a week without a proper conversation. Maya began to wonder if she had imagined their bond. A turning point. One evening, as Maya walked through Central Park with her camera, her phone buzzed. It was Ethan. Hey. His message read, "Are you free to talk?" Without hesitation, she called him. "I'm sorry," Ethan said as soon as he picked up. "I've been in my head lately. I noticed," Maya replied softly. "What's going on?" Ethan hesitated before admitting, "I've been feeling stuck with my writing, with everything, and I didn't want to bother you with it." Maya smiled, though he couldn't see it. "Ethan, you're not bothering me. I want to be there for you, just like you've been there for me." Her words broke through his walls. They talked for hours, sharing their fears and frustrations. By the end of the call, they both felt lighter, reminded of the strength they found in each other. A bold decision. The next day, as Maya developed photos in her small studio, an idea struck her. Why wait for fate to decide everything? She thought. Impulsively, she booked a train ticket to Boston. When she arrived at Ethan's doorstep that evening, he was stunned. "Maya?" She smiled, holding up a takeout bag from his favorite diner. "I figured you could use some company." Ethan laughed, pulling her into a hug. "You have no idea how much." Rebuilding together. Over the next few days, they explored Boston together. Maya brought her camera everywhere, capturing candid moments of Ethan laughing, writing in a coffee shop, or simply gazing out at the city skyline. Ethan, inspired by Maya's determination, found himself writing again. "You make everything seem possible," he told her one evening. "And you remind me why I believe in destiny." Maya replied. They began to talk about their future, not as individuals, but as a team, facing challenges together. But love, like life, isn't without its challenges. Ethan's work required him to stay in Boston, while Maya's photography career demanded her presence in New York. One evening, as they sat on a park bench overlooking the Charles River, Maya voiced the question they'd both been avoiding. "What happens when I go back to New York?" Ethan sighed, taking her hand. "I don't have all the answers." "Maya, but I know I don't want this to end." "Neither do I," she said, her voice trembling. "But long distance is hard." "It is," he admitted. "But I think what we have is worth the effort." They sat in silence, watching the river flow. Despite the uncertainty, they felt a shared determination to make things work. An unexpected opportunity. Just when things seemed at their most complicated, fate or destiny intervened once again. A week after Maya returned to New York, she received an email from a prestigious photography magazine. They wanted to feature her work, and the assignment would require her to spend several months traveling, including a stop in Boston. Overwhelmed with joy, she immediately called Ethan. "You're not going to believe this," she said, breathless. "Try me," he replied, smiling on the other end of the line. As she explained the opportunity, they both realized what it meant: more time together and a chance to strengthen their bond. Love that grows. Over the next few months, Maya and Ethan built a rhythm. They supported each other through challenges, celebrated each other's successes, and learned to navigate the ups and downs of their relationship. Maya's photography career blossomed, and Ethan finished the first draft of his novel, a story inspired, in part, by their journey. One evening, as they walked hand in hand through Central Park during one of Maya's visits to Boston, Ethan stopped suddenly. "I never believed in destiny," he said, looking into her eyes. "But then I met you." Maya smiled, tears filling her eyes. "I think destiny knew exactly what it was doing." Part 4. A new chapter. Months turned into a year, and Maya and Ethan's relationship continued to flourish despite their busy lives. They had found a way to balance their careers and their love. But deep down, they both knew something had to change if they were going to build a future together. One evening, as they strolled along the Boston waterfront during one of Maya's visits, Ethan stopped and turned to her. "Maya, we've spent so much time figuring out how to make this work, but I think it's time we take a leap." Maya raised an eyebrow, her heart racing. "What do you mean?" Ethan smiled, pulling a small box from his pocket. "I mean, I don't want to keep wondering what the future holds for us. I want us to create it together." He knelt down on one knee, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. "Maya, will you marry me?" A promise made. Maya's eyes filled with tears as she looked at the man who had become her best friend, her greatest support, and the love of her life. "Yes," she whispered, her voice shaking. "1,000 times. Yes." Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, and they embraced as cheers erupted from passersby. For them, this moment was more than a proposal. It was a promise to face life's uncertainties together, no matter what. Building a life together. The months following their engagement were a whirlwind. Maya decided to move to Boston, where she found a studio space to continue her photography. Ethan, now in the editing stages of his novel, was thrilled to have her close by. Their days were filled with laughter, shared meals, and late-night brainstorming sessions. Maya often helped Ethan refine his characters, while Ethan encouraged Maya to experiment with new photography styles. They were a team in every sense of the word. But as their wedding day approached, they faced new challenges. Planning a wedding while juggling demanding careers wasn't easy, and they often found themselves stressed and overwhelmed. One evening, after a particularly heated argument over seating arrangements, Maya sat down beside Ethan on the couch. "I don't want us to lose sight of what this is about," she said softly. "It's not about the perfect wedding. It's about us." Ethan nodded, taking her hand. "You're right. At the end of the day, all that matters is that we're together." They decided to simplify their plans, opting for a small, intimate ceremony with their closest friends and family. The wedding day, on a crisp autumn afternoon, Maya and Ethan stood beneath a canopy of golden leaves, surrounded by loved ones. As they exchanged vows, there wasn't a dry eye in the audience. From the moment I met you, Ethan said, his voice steady but full of emotion. I knew you were special. You've taught me to believe in destiny, in love, and in the power of taking chances. Maya smiled through her tears. Ethan, you've shown me that love is about more than just fate. It's about choice. I choose you today and every day. Their first kiss as husband and wife was met with applause and cheers, a testament to the love and support surrounding them. A life of love and growth. After the wedding, Maya and Ethan settled into their new life together. They continued to chase their dreams while supporting each other every step of the way. Ethan's novel was published to critical acclaim, and Maya's photography was featured in several major exhibitions. But their greatest joy came not from their careers, but from the quiet moments they shared: Sunday morning breakfasts, spontaneous road trips, and nights spent talking about everything and nothing. One evening, as they sat on their porch watching the sunset, Maya turned to Ethan. Do you ever think about how we met? She asked. All the time, he replied, smiling. If that flight hadn't been canceled, if we hadn't started talking, who knows where we'd be? Maya nodded, resting her head on his shoulder. It's funny how life works, isn't it? Sometimes, the best things happen when you least expect them. Ethan kissed her forehead. It's all destiny. A legacy of love. Years later, as they told their love story to their children, Maya and Ethan couldn't help but smile. Their journey hadn't been perfect. It had been messy, unpredictable, and full of challenges. But through it all, they had chosen each other, proving that love isn't just about destiny. It's about the choices we make every day to hold on, to grow, and to build a life together. And as their children listened with wide eyes and eager hearts, Maya and Ethan knew that their love story was just the beginning of a legacy of hope, resilience, and faith in the power of love. Part 5, A New Generation. Maya and Ethan's life together continued to flourish, each passing year bringing them closer, not just as partners, but as best friends, teammates, and parents. As they embraced the new chapters of their lives, they found that destiny, in the form of love and family, had much more to teach them. Their children, Lily and Max, were the bright spots of their days, reminding them of the beauty in simple moments and the importance of staying present. Maya had given up some of her photography work to focus more on family, while Ethan's career continued to rise as he wrote his second novel. Inspired by their life together, the growing pains, but with the joy of family came new challenges. Parenthood was an uncharted territory for both Maya and Ethan, and at times, it felt like they were fumbling through it. Their children, though full of energy and love, had their own set of struggles. Lily, their teenage daughter, had become withdrawn, struggling with school and friendships. Mux, still in elementary school, seemed to be in constant motion, always getting into trouble. One evening, as Maya and Ethan sat at the kitchen table after putting the kids to bed, they exchanged tired glances. I don't know if we're doing this right, Maya said, rubbing her temples. It feels like we're not reaching them, especially with Lily. She's shutting us out. Ethan sighed, his brow furrowed. I know. It's like we're talking to a wall. Maybe she needs space, but I don't want her to feel alone. They sat in silence for a moment, trying to find a solution. The love they had for their children was immeasurable, and seeing them struggle hurt more than anything. But they knew they needed to find a way to break through to them. Facing challenges together. The next morning, Maya decided to talk to Lily. Instead of confronting her with questions about school or friends, she invited her to the local park, a place they used to visit when Lily was younger. Maya brought along her camera, something she knew her daughter had once enjoyed. To her surprise, Lily agreed to go. As they walked through the park, Maya took pictures of the trees in full bloom, the light dancing on the leaves. After a few minutes, she spoke softly. You used to love photography. You'd always find something beautiful to capture. I miss seeing that in you. Lily looked away for a moment, her expression guarded. But Maya didn't push. She just kept walking, letting the silence stretch out until Lily finally spoke. I just don't feel like myself lately, Lily admitted. School is hard. My friends don't get me anymore. And sometimes I feel like no one really listens. Maya smiled gently, her heart aching for her daughter. Lily, I know it's tough, but I'm always here to listen. You don't have to go through this alone. The rest of the afternoon was quiet, but something shifted between them. Maya didn't expect everything to change overnight, but she knew they had made a step toward understanding. Mux adventure. Mux, on the other hand, was a bundle of energy, but his mischievousness often got him into trouble at school. And Maya and Ethan had received several phone calls from his teachers. One weekend, Ethan decided to spend a day with Max, trying to bond with him over something they both loved: basketball. All right, kiddo, let's see if you're any good on the court, Ethan said with a playful grin. Max's eyes lit up. I'm going to show you my moves. Dad. The game was full of laughs, missed shots, and friendly competition. But as the game ended, Ethan took a moment to sit down with Max on the sideline. Mux, you're a lot like me when I was your age, Ethan began, watching his son closely. I was always the kid getting into trouble, but I learned that it's okay to have fun. Just as long as we don't hurt anyone or do anything that might make people upset. Mux nodded, his usual mischievous grin softening. I'll try, Dad. The conversation was brief, but important. It was a reminder that, despite their differences, Ethan and Max shared more than just basketball, an understanding that could only come from a father who had once been a restless child himself. The family's growth. In the following months, Maya and Ethan worked hard to keep the communication open with their children. They weren't perfect, and they didn't have all the answers. But they made an effort to show Lily and Max that they were always there for them, no matter what. And as their children began to open up more, Maya and Ethan found themselves not just parents, but mentors. They shared their own experiences, teaching the kids about resilience, failure, and the importance of love in both good and bad times. They encouraged them to follow their passions, as they had done with their own, a future full of destiny. One evening, as they sat around the dinner table, Lily spoke up. You know, I think I'm going to start taking photography classes. I want to get better. Maya's eyes sparkled. I think that's a wonderful idea. Mux, not to be left out, added, I want to join the basketball team at school. Ethan chuckled. I'll be there at every game. As the family shared their hopes for the future, Maya and Ethan exchanged a look, one filled with love, gratitude, and hope for what was yet to come. While the future was uncertain, they had learned that destiny wasn't something that just happened. It was something they created together every single day. The endless journey of love. Years passed, and Maya and Ethan continued to write their love story together. As a family, they witnessed the growth of their children, the challenges they faced, and the triumphs they celebrated. They traveled the world, capturing moments and memories. But through it all, one truth remained. Love was not just about grand gestures or perfect moments. It was about being present. It was about showing up day after day, even when the road seemed tough. Love was about choosing each other, no matter what life threw their way. And as they sat on the porch of their home, watching the sunset, Maya and Ethan knew that whatever the future held, they were ready for it. They had faced their fears, fought for their dreams, and chosen love always. And with that, they knew destiny had already brought them together. But love was what kept them bound for life. Moral of the story. The story of Maya and Ethan teaches us that love is not just about fate or destiny. It's about the choices we make every day. Life will present us with challenges, but love requires patience, understanding, and effort. True love is built through consistent support, open communication, and a willingness to grow together. It's also about embracing imperfections and trusting that the right moments, people, and experiences will come when we least expect them. Above all, love is a journey, one that's constantly evolving, requiring us to choose one another over and over again. I'm so glad you spent this time with me. If you like the story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Take care, and see you next time.